Yeah, that's a very good point and a very good way of putting it. I appreciate that because I think that people don't really realize or maybe consider the idea that the various ET races may themselves be misled and going down a path in which they think they're in the right, just as humans often do, and then find out later that they didn't have the whole picture.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Kerry, and it's happening all the time. And the best way for me, my BS monitor is my deep core heart within myself, my own being. And of course, like again, I've got the luxury of those points of reference. And so for me, it's content is really important. When I hear people say that Mother Earth is descending, I don't resonate with that. I just say to people, look, ask her herself. Don't take my word for it, and you'll find out for yourselves. So I can only recommend people to do that. I really can.
Okay. How did you come by this knowledge? Do you want to talk a little bit about your background and sort of how you came to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. I've had contact with ETs and interdimensional beings all my life, and the furthest back I can remember is 5.5 years old. That's as far back as I can remember. And throughout my life, I had some really unpleasant experiences and some really wonderful experiences. And as I got through my teenage years, like I couldn't stay awake in class because I'd be going up in ships at night, and it'd be happening like 2 to 3 times a week, and they'd be wiping my memory. And so I had a few memory issues throughout my life as well. Someone introduces themselves to me, and I've forgotten their name within 2 seconds. And it happens quite often, not as much these days because I'm reclaiming the sovereignty over my own mind, but I've been through quite a bit, and I've been through a lot of abductions with the shadow government. I can tell you categorically, absolutely, categorically, 100% that massive UFO flap in Mexico, Guatemala in Mexico, with about 500 ships in the sky at the same time was a shadow government fleet. Absolutely, 100%, no doubt whatsoever. I've been going up in these craft for a long time.
And when was that? When you're talking about that fleet of ships, when was that?
I can't remember the exact year. I just know it was in Guatemala in Mexico. It was probably in 2004, I think. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. I just know the fleet. I got the visualization of it in the sky, and that was definitely a shadow government fleet. And there was one small ship that was controlling the rest, and that was identified. And you can actually you can see how they're all moving in synchronization. And then every now and then they would move independently, and that's also got to do with some of the training that goes on behind the scenes with creating. This is the much higher end of the super soldier program behind the scenes. So throughout my life, I've had to put up with a lot of, I would say, abductions of the kind of the shadow government and also their extraterrestrial overlords, and they wanted to assimilate me into their structures. And it's been really challenging because I've still got implants in me, but it gets down to the point where you now know that your own inner light and consciousness can override anything that goes on, anything that they can impose upon you.
Absolutely. That's absolutely key. We're going to have a commercial now, and we'll be back with George Kavassilas. Thank you very much. Gary Cassidy, Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio, and we're talking to George Kavassilas, and I am in South Africa doing the show using Skype on my cell phone. Very revolutionary technology here. And George is in Australia. So, George, we were talking right before the break. You were explaining some of your background as to how you got where you are today, and perhaps you could continue.
Yeah, it's quite a long story, but so throughout my teenage years, I was being abducted, and I was trying to stay awake in class, and that was really challenging for me. And I didn't know on one level quite what was happening to me because I knew I was being abducted, but when you get put back and they screen your memory, you get a lot of emotional upheaval, especially when you're a teenager because of all the hormones rushing through your body, and you're also fighting because my desires were being manipulated and my mind was being manipulated. So I've had to struggle with that, and I couldn't communicate it with any of my family and friends. I tried to, but they didn't want to listen, and I was just an idiot, or I was crazy, or I just had a bad dream, or something like that. So it was just left up. I was left up to my own resources, basically. So I did the best I could and just got on with life and just basically lived with it. And then I started seeing a bit of a pattern. A pattern was emerging. It's like every time I went to speak, I saw the transformation in people in front of me. They would change. I could sense it. I could feel it. It's like when in the movie The Matrix, Mr. Smith steps into the person. And then I started realising about the Matrix, and I just started seeing it for what it was. And how I wasn't allowed to voice my own sovereignty. I wasn't allowed to voice my true essence and my true knowings and my true understandings of life. And, yeah, it became apparent that my word had no value to people as well. And I always wondered about that. And then I started to realise that I came here for a reason. And then I started having meetings with other extraterrestrial races and galactic family and beings in other dimensions on this planet. And it's just been an incredible journey. And the whole point of it is I finally realised what the whole charade was about, and it was they just knew I was here on this planet for a reason, and they were abducting me because they wanted to stop me. They wanted to control me and stop me from actually having a voice and speaking out, because I'm one of the people that were going to do that down the track. So it became quite apparent what was going on. Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps the beings that you found. First of all, that I guess you might call, what I would call service to self, what you were experiencing with them. And then could you also contrast the beings that came to you that you felt had a good, solid connection with you, and at the same time also had humanity's best interests at mind, so to speak?
Yeah. The beings that were service to self, the ones that were abducting me the most were the greys. And I ended up experiencing quite a few different grey beings. There's literally thousands of different kinds of greys. So grey is a very generic term. And there were two distinct group of greys that I was in contact with. And one of them were just robotoids. And there was members of the US military and other people who were on board the ships. There were taller greys too. So you had the little workers, which are around 3.5 foot tall. And then you had these taller greys, which are around between 5 and 7 foot. And then you had people who were humans, military people. And I found that quite fascinating. And then the experiences with those beings were incredibly unpleasant. I had my kundalini milked out of my body, glandular secretions, semen. It was a horrendous time in my life. I really, really struggled with all that was going on. There were other things that went on which I don't wish to share publicly, but they were really awful, and I suffered a lot, and couldn't voice it to anybody. And then there was another group of greys who came to me, and at that time in my life I started really getting into computer games. And they picked me up one night and said, look at us, just take a look at us, look at our bodies. And I knew they were friends, they were really familiar to me. And they said, look what we've become. And they said to me, I said, why? They said to me, because we chose the path of technology. They said, be very careful. If you choose the path of technology, you will end up like us. And they were once humanoid, not Earth human, but human type of race. And they had to go underground because they chose a path of technology which destroyed their planet, and came out a long time further down the track, over 100,000 years, had to go underground. So all their body parts atrophied, and they had to adapt to a life with technology.
George, I'd like you to try to repeat that because it's absolutely crucial. And I think in my view, because I have, when I go out speaking, I do talk about a choice that's being made at on this planet at this time. And what I talk about is between what I term robotic Superman or angelic human. So there's a choice, and the technology side of it is very much where the Black projects have gone, as you know. And so if you could repeat that again, because you were cut off.
Sure. These group of greys that I consider family compared to the other groups, which were service to self, as you put them, said to me, look at us, look what we've become. Because at that time in my life, I was getting into computer games. So I started focusing and putting my attention and my energy into technology more and more. And they said, look at what we've become. And I said, how did you become like that? They said, because we've chosen the path of technology. And they said, if you choose the path of technology, you will end up like this eventually. And what they were was where we are now, exactly in our evolution, they were about 1 million years forward in our evolution from today. So if humans want to continue down this path of technology, they eventually, over a long period of time, will end up looking like the Greys. That's what's waiting for them down the track, because technology does everything for you, and your body parts end up atrophying, and they're no longer required. So they just atrophy, and the race just morphs into this other state of being. It's really sad. And they're really wonderful beings, and they're a group of Greys that actually made contact with our governments behind the scenes, but because they were advising against the path of technology and power, they were told to go away, whereas the other ones who offered technology and power were the ones that were more favoured.
Yes, absolutely. So at that point, knowing what you had then learned, what did you do? Because my understanding is that at that point you were sort of under control to some degree of the other group. And how did you break away from the Galactic Federation? Because I think a lot of people would like to know so that they could understand what to do for themselves.
Okay, it really all came to a crescendo after my experience in 2003 when my galactic family came along and picked me up. And I'm talking a group of Pleiadians, Sirians, and these are common names that people hear. Now, the vibration of these Pleiadians or Sirians are different to the ones that I read in channelings, I read in books, I hear people talking about. Honestly, this is a very different group of Pleiadians and Sirians. And there was Eridanians, and the Eridani are a tortured race. My goodness, what those people have gone through. Arcturians, and their fascination is economic collectives and how it oppresses spirit, because they really need to work that out because of some of the planetary systems in their star system. So there's a lot going on here, and there's different groups that are in different vibrational paradigms. And that's what I want to make clear. And then, of course, we have the confusing situation where beings are posing as other races. So like you mentioned earlier, Kerry, and it does make things confusing. So just use vibration to be your BS meter. And so after my galactic family picked me up, I ended up going to a really large craft towards the Sirius system. And then they facilitated this incredible experience for me where they maintained the life force of my body without the use of any technology. I really got to reiterate that. And this was a sole contract that they were going to pick me up at that point in time in my journey. And all of me came out of my body. So everything that animates this body into being came out. And that's why they needed to maintain the integrity of my body. So while I was gone on this journey, I could then come back into my body. And when they came to pick me up, I knew instantly who they were. There's no smothering you with love and light and we're your brothers and welcome home and all that crap. No, that doesn't go on. It's like when your brother walks into the room or your sister walks into the room. You know exactly who they are instantly. They don't have to prove it to you. And it's the same thing. So all this other hoo-ha that goes on, that's a red flag for me. And I took this journey with my consciousness up through the dimensions of our universe, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And to see a whole dimensional paradigm with billions of galaxies just shrink down into a vortex of light as I was going up, that was incredible. And I even got to look outside our universe. And, you know, I discovered, I may have mentioned this before to your audience, but I discovered that we are all universes out there, and we're equal with the creator of this universe. And when you connect with the creator of this universe, a real one, it'll be the first one to tell you that you exist infinitely beyond it does on this level of being. It's incredible. We're infinite. So nothing exists beyond me and nothing exists beyond you. And we are truly infinite. And we're not born or spawned out of some God consciousness, which is the great deception. So I wanted to put that in too, because it's a very big part of it, actually.